Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Connor, and you are listening to another episode of Film Talks. We got a great day outside. It's nice and sunny, not too warm, not too cold. Great day to record a podcast. So, what am I talking about today? Today, I'm talking about reunions. What's the best way to record a reunion for a show or a movie? Then I want to talk about The Lovely Bones for a little bit and how just terrible that movie is. And then for what I'm watching, we're going to do a big one. We're going to talk about Loki, Wandavision, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And, I'll tell you which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like, and all that stuff. So, with that, let's get into it. So first, what am I talking about? Reunions. So what do I mean by reunions? Well, very recently, HBO Max released the Friends reunion special. I don't know what they called it, but they got the original cast from Friends and they brought them together, and they kind of just had like a panel where they played certain games and they remembered old scenes and shared memories they had about the show and all that stuff. And that's a specific kind of reunion. Um, Another version of a reunion they do is something like Fuller House, where they took the cast, most of them, from the original Full House, and they continued the story in Fuller House. So, after experiencing both kinds of reunion, I was wondering which one's better. Because I do think there was a little bit of conversation about the Friends reunion and how people would have preferred they just uh, pick up with the characters and see where they are at this point in their lives. I actually, if I had to choose between the two, because maybe I'm not even a reunion person to begin with, I would probably rather watch the panel reunion, behind the scenes kind of experience. Because if you think about it, if you continue the story, most of the time, if you have any sort of reunion episode or special, it's because of it's a very beloved show, right? You're not gonna do a reunion for some show that lasted a season or something like that. Like, you're gonna do something that had a big fan base, lasted a while, saw the completion of the show. Um, or movie. For instance, Josh Gad, he had during the quarantine COVID era, he would have this Zoom meeting where he would bring in cast members from older movies and have them kind of do like a reunion over Zoom. So he did like The Goonies, he did Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. So that was all super fun and very similar to the Friends type of reunion. And I think that's the way to go, because hear me out. You may think you want to see where your beloved characters have wound up later in their life. However, it opens the show up to disappointment, right? Most likely, you like the show because it in some way is a good, well-rounded, like, had a good beginning, had a good end. It just is good, and you will rewatch it, and it's great. If you reopen it, there's always the possibility that you are going to screw it up. I think Star Wars is a very it's strange to say that it's a reunion, but the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker are technically a sort of reunion for Star Wars. You haven't seen Luke, Leia, and Han in a while. Let's see where they're at and introduce some new characters at the same time. What did we see? But one of the biggest criticisms of those three movies were the people that loved those characters then watched these movies and in some or many cases didn't like the way those characters were treated. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Really good, solid story, and it had an ending that was satisfactory. You then bring them back and you need to create a whole nother story and justify that story. And in some ways, it can kind of retroactively make things worse, which is like the worst possible way that a reunion could go. For instance, we go with let's I don't want to overuse Star Wars, but it's the easy one to pick on, where they did a lot of stuff in these three newer ones that impacted prior movies. Like, for instance, that they never actually killed Palpatine. He survived the fall. Well, indirectly, I guess. But he wasn't like dead. He was still around. So this retroactively changes the sacrifice of Darth Vader, at least in my mind. I think maybe Star Wars fans might justify it and be like, oh, this, or that. The climax of Return of the Jedi is Darth Vader sacrifices himself for his son and kills the big bad. But then you pull that back and you're like, you know what? Darth Vader did sacrifice himself for his son, but he wasn't successful. The bad guy is still around. And I think that tarnishes a good story. That's the problem that can arise out of continuing a show with a reunion. You might say, hey, I want to see where Ted Mosby and How I Met Your Mother is at this point in his life as an older man. You probably don't. You like the showrunners hadn't hopefully had an idea of where they wanted the show to go, and then they ended it because they said that was the ending that needed to happen. It's not like real life. I think a lot of times we can kind of conflate these characters with real life people. Their lives aren't carrying on. Their lives are over after the story is over because that's the satisfactory end that we as viewers needed. Like it might be kind of fun to imagine where Han Solo is as an old man, but to make a movie about it, you need objectives. You need reasons to do it. And of course that in the case of an old man, there's only few things you can do with him, which in this case, you end up killing Han Solo. So I think those panel discussions are a lot more fun for me because you get that behind the scenes. I think you still get that love of the show that you wanted. You get to kind of revive that feeling and get back into the flow of it without tarnishing the memory of the story. So when you rewatch that show or that movie again, it's still as good as it was. You just get some fun behind the scenes tidbits that I'd appreciate. Like in the case of Seinfeld, I don't want them to do old people Seinfeld skits. Like I'd much rather just have them all meet and then talk about their favorite memories. Like that's fun. But be sure to leave me a comment on my Instagram or on YouTube. Let me know what you think. Do you prefer that panel type discussion reunion, or do you want them to continue the story? And second up I want to talk about is Lovely Bones, okay? This is out of the blue, I know, but me and Jasmine watched it the other day, and Jasmine, my girlfriend, for those who don't know, we watched Lovely Bones, and good God, was it just terrible in so many ways. I know there's a book, never read the book. I am just sort of in a mood right now where I watched that Kate Winslet TV show on HBO. So like those true crime kind of dramatic movie TV show things, I'm kind of like in the mood for that kind of thing. I might watch Prisoners starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman soon. So that's what I might be watching later. And I saw Lovely Bones was kind of in that genre, and I was like, oh, it's got Saoirse Ronan, Stanley Tucci. They're not terrible people. It had Mark Wahlberg, which I was questioning, but I was like, I'll just go with it. And it was directed by Peter Jackson. And like right after Lord of the Rings, he did King Kong, which was I don't think many people liked it. It was really, really long, longer than it needed to be. And then he does Lovely Bones, which in no way makes sense to me. Like, what is this story? Why is Peter Jackson, of all people, doing this story? Like, for those who don't know, it's about a girl who is killed very early in the movie, and her family is trying to figure out who murdered her, all while her in like astral form is in like purgatory, I guess, and she's trying to like deal with her death. I don't know. And when you think of Peter Jackson, you think kind of grand, big scale movies. This is not that at all. Like the only part of this movie that feels Peter Jackson is the purgatory part, because it's very CGI, these big made up worlds. And that's probably the worst part of the movie, because it doesn't meld with anything. There's no meshing with the purgatory part, with the serial murder, because like the drive of the movie, at least in my eyes, is let's catch the murderer being Stanley Tucci, which I will wholly disapprove. Like, oh, it was so weird. I did not like it. Maybe that was the point, but I did not like it. So they're trying to catch Stanley Tucci, and that's where the story is driven. But then they always pull back and they're like, hey, don't forget Saoirse. She's still in purgatory and she's still not happy that she's dead. I'm like, no crap, she's not happy she's dead. But like, I feel like the emotion of these movies is when somebody is killed too early or too young and you feel bad for them. And in some way, you kind of wish you could fix it or talk to them. And you get that. And you get too much of it, and to the point where like it's not really that sad anymore, because she's always around, and like people will cry that she's dead, but like to the viewer she's not. I don't know. It just it didn't make sense to me, and it doesn't help that Mark Wahlberg is like supposed to be like one of the emotional cruxes of the story. Like who thought Mark Wahlberg, Mr. Muscle Action Guy, is going to be the emotional crying dad? Like, that's not his strength at all. His strength is lifting weights and punching people in the face. That's about it. And he doesn't even really get to do it in this movie. Like, he tries to, and then he gets his butt kicked in a cornfield by some random kid with a baseball bat. The family dynamic was strange. The mom is trying to deal with the daughter's death and decides, hey, I'm going to just go to California and leave my family because I need to take care of myself. Like you have to take care of your family. That's what your job is. Like, yes, you can feel bad, but like you can't just ditch your family. Like she already openly acknowledges that the dad is losing it a little. And the way she deals with it is by leaving her kids with her alcoholic mother. And I'm like, why does this, it's just terrible parenting. And not that I would know, I'm not a parent, of course. Like, of course, I'm the one who's judging the parenting styles. But I mean, it doesn't make any logical sense to me. And it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be encouraged that this is the route you should go. You should just ditch your kids when you're feeling bad. And then, of course, you have Stanley, who's like, always Mr. Nice Guy in all of his movies, and in this one they gave him like a weird mustache and like weird blue contact lenses, and we're like, yep, you're going to lure a girl into a cornfield and kill her and do God knows what, and then stuff her body in some place, and like, ugh. And it's so like, yes, it's creepy, but it's an image I didn't want, and I just, it's so gross and weird. I don't think it'll change my opinion of him, but I think that's so fun for him, I guess, that he went completely against his typecast and did something that I would not have expected him to be able to do or pull off. It was kind of impressive. Yeah, I think really my gripe with Lovely Bones is kind of weird acting choices and Peter Jackson's decision to not make this really about the murderer, but make this about a girl who's died and is trying to come to grips with the fact that she's dead. But he never focuses on one or the other too much. He kind of goes back and forth in annoying ways. Like when I watch The Phantom Menace, right? At the end of The Phantom Menace, you have the Darth Maul fight, you have Anakin in space, and then you have Jar Jar Binks fighting the droids. And then you even have Padme kind of storming the castle palace thing. Super annoying because, of course, of all of them, what do you want to see? You want to see the Darth Maul fight, but they keep cutting between that and less cool things. In this movie, I wouldn't say either are really cool, but they're not picking one. So it's just constantly going back and forth during, right when you start getting into the flow of it, and it's annoying. You're just like, I just want to like pick one and enjoy it, but you can't. And I really didn't enjoy the purgatory element at all anyways. It was kind of it just felt like wasted space, and I don't know. Like, she's dead. She doesn't need to come to grips with it. She's gone. Like, I don't know. I guess this is just different beliefs on the afterlife and all that, and how people expect to deal with death. I don't know. So let me know what you guys thought of Lovely Bones. It came out a while ago, I think before 2010. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's available, I think, on Netflix. Yeah, so Lovely Bones. Not a great movie. Don't recommend it. And now we come to the part where I discuss what I've been watching, which over the last few months, I've been watching first WandaVision, then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then Loki. For those of you who are new, I like to ask myself a few questions in determining whether I liked a previously viewed film or show, because sometimes you can kind of get caught up in your thoughts and you're like, oh, did I like it? Did I not? I don't know. So I tried to create some questions for myself that helped me really try to tailor my opinions on it. So WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, a lot of big shows. Marvel's first foray into TV. I know they have made TV shows before, but this is from the Disney Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige produced TV shows. So like this is like the first kind of thing that we've been able to see from them. So first question I like to ask is, was the storyline bloated or rushed in any of these three shows? WandaVision, perfect pacing. I think the great thing about most of these shows is they're kind of set up in kind of a mini series kind of way. Loki was confirmed to be getting a second season, but they all operate in a way that you could just be happy with just that season. I guess maybe not Loki, but the other two. So storyline, bloated or rushed? WandaVision, perfectly paced. I had no problem with the pacing. Maybe one episode in the middle, you're like, what's going on here? But most of the pacing that would feel kind of bloated comes from the fact that, like any Marvel property, they have to kind of throw things in there that set things up for the future. Some people like that, some people don't. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of interesting to kind of speculate where they're going to take those characters or why they introduce certain things. So I didn't think WandaVision had any trouble with pacing. Falcon and the Winter Soldier definitely had pacing problems. From my point of view, because WandaVision itself was more of a romance kind of ode to old TV, sitcom kind of thing. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was more of a kind of like Ocean's 11 meets action superhero kind of thing. So sort of spy, sort of action kind of deal. And the beginning of the show is kind of tight, and then they kind of lose it because you don't really know who the real villain is. They're trying to make everything complex and say, hey, this could be the villain, this could be the villain. They're gonna be working with a villain to catch another villain. And then they get to this point where they're kind of waiting to get to the finale. And I don't really appreciate it when a show takes a whole episode just for character development, especially in a miniseries kind of format. I think it's a waste of time. I think you need character development, of course. I love it when you develop the characters, but you should be able to do it in the natural flow of the story. You shouldn't have a whole episode, essentially in this case, dedicated to them fixing a ship and just talking and sharing a meal and stuff. It seemed to slow it down a little more than was comfortable for me. And then you get to the finale and it's just like one big action scene. I'm like, you probably could have spread this out a little more. I don't know. And then Loki was, I think, the shortest of all three, and therefore had no pacing issues whatsoever. I thought it didn't feel too fast. I thought the characters went fine. Maybe it felt a little fast, I think, because you took a character in Loki who was kind of made to be cyclical in nature, like always bad and then kind of good and then back to bad, and they were trying to turn him into a more complex character who is not just good, not just bad, can be both. I don't know how to say it, but like can be good and wholly bad at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but can be a redeemed kind of person. I don't know. And you might say that that might be a little too much to try and swallow in 6 episodes, which you might be right, you might be wrong, because by the time they try to get him to develop, it's like around episode 3, so it's basically like 3 episodes. But altogether, I thought of the 3, Falcon and the Winter Soldier had the most pacing problems, but WandaVision and Loki were pretty tight. Second question, are the characters relatable? WandaVision, oh, so relatable. I loved most of the characters. Wanda, of course, is a grieving, not wife, I don't know, but a partner to Vision, and I thought it did make me tear up a little bit, and I thought they did a really good job kind of showing you what this relationship to Vision meant to her, because all those in the other movies, they were kind of side characters, so they didn't really get the forefront of the focus. In this instance, you got to just look at their romance, look at their relationship, see what it means to her, the fact that she lost it, which I mean, I feel like that ties very well into Lovely Bones. Lovely Bones, they lose their daughter, but she's still around. And this one, she loses her husband and he's not around. Like, physically he is, but it's not her husband. He's just a figment of her imagination, and so it's not exactly him. And that's really compelling and really heartbreaking, because she's trying to keep him alive through her memories, and it's an impossible task. And I think that's translatable to real life, where, like, you might lose somebody or you might lose something and you'll try to hold on to it, but it's not the real thing, because it's just a figment of your imagination. It's your creation, and that takes away from the beauty, from the realism of that thing that you lost. And oftentimes the reason why you liked it was the fact that you weren't really in control of it, and yet it still fit with you. I think when she's then making Vision, he's under her control, so it doesn't really work that way. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'll be honest, I didn't really like this show. However, I didn't mind Falcon. Winter Soldier, I think, is still a little one-dimensional. He's kind of just that rough guy who's trying to recover from his past sins, very similar to Black Widow, but it's just not a kind of story that I really get in touch with. Falcon, Falcon's story was just being a Black American dealing with modern day America, which I guess I couldn't really empathize with, but I've seen enough, talked to enough people, and had my own fair share of dealing with criticism due to certain elements about myself. And so I think most people can in some way relate to the plight of Falcon. And I thought it was super cool to see someone, see a hero who is kind of has the ability to become that hero, but needs the confidence to be that hero. I don't think we see that a lot, where we have someone with the abilities but doesn't have the confidence. I feel like, you see Superman, he very frequently has the confidence. He's never lacking in confidence. And then the villain in Falcon and Winter Soldier, well, I guess U.S. Agent is sort of a villain, sort of not. Another compelling kind of character, which I guess some people criticized that, with the villains in that show, they were trying so hard to make no one the main villain that they kind of successfully made no one the villain, because it was just kind of like, who's the bad guy? I don't know. Like this they had this little girl as like a terrorist super soldier girl. Nobody really bought that she was a bad guy or that she was a good guy. It was just kind of like she was just a mediocre person. U.S. Agent, though, what I thought was really cool about him was he was kind of juxtaposed with Falcon. So they both are told by others, you are the new Captain America, and both of them are struggling with the weight of what that means. And Falcon feels like he needs to earn it. U.S. Agent kind of just takes it and says, because it's been given to me, it's mine, and just kind of snatches it. And you learn that that's not the way you become Captain America. Like the actual Captain America never wanted to be Captain America. He just wanted to be what people needed him to be. And that's what Falcon comes to the realization at the very end, that it's not trying to become something or trying to take something that belongs to you. It's becoming what people need. That's what a hero should be. And US Agent is more like, hey, I was told I'm your hero. You have to treat me like your hero. And so that makes him more of an antagonist figure. And I thought that was very compelling, interesting. And then we have Loki. Loki, loved how they handled the character of Loki, because this show, way different than the other two. And I mean, the other two didn't have anything in common anyways, but this one, super thinky. Like, they're talking about free will, they're dealing with like the timeline breaking down and having like police who are trying to make sure that the timeline stays on the right path. And Loki is sort of a chaotic figure who's trying to break the timeline, him and his Loki variant self, Sylvie. And he ends up falling in love with himself, basically, Sylvie, because she is also Loki, so that's a fun little thing. But seeing a character who sort of embodies chaos try to fight a dictator-like figure, and then in the end question whether free will or chaos is actually the right option. Like, he ends up sort of siding with the dictator and saying this might actually be the right way, and not following his former path of always trying to just take out the ruling authority. And I think it's relatable because he's questioning basic core elements of himself, which we do pretty frequently, I feel like. And then I guess, does the media, or I guess media is a weird word. A question I have is, does the TV show or does the movie draw attention to the fact that it's fake? I love the fact that these 3 shows, or miniseries, whatever you want to call them, are so well produced that they feel like a Marvel movie in TV show format. Like, the CGI is good, like the whole thing. Like, it feels like it could just be a movie, just really long. And so all that stuff, really great. The way they just handled the production of it. It's technically sound. The budget is probably insane. I don't know. But no, I don't think it ever drew attention to the fact that you were like, oh, I'm watching something that's, not real. And then rewatchability. Would I rewatch any of these 3? And that's the sort of hard thing about Marvel for me, right? Like, a criticism of Marvel, I brought it up countless times. It's a palatable series, which means it's neither going to blow your socks off, and it's not going to, I guess, piss you off in any way. It's kind of just there, and it's really easy to watch, which I think something being easy to watch is good for rewatchability. I probably wouldn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier because, again, it was kind of a slog a lot of times. And besides Falcon and US Agent, I felt like most of the other characters were kind of boring. WandaVision, I might rewatch because I thought, at least certain episodes, because I thought there were some fun things. Like, there was this one episode where they just they take snapshots of Wanda's life, and they kind of walk you through what got her to this point, and I thought that was really cool. And then Loki, I think, at least the last episode, because this He Who Remains character was just beautiful. Like, he's super thought-provoking, has all these, he's just a scene stealer in the way that, like, Heath Ledger's Joker just, like, made you just watch him the whole time when he was on screen, and you couldn't take your eyes off him. This guy was very similar. He was the main actor in Lovecraft Country on HBO Max. But I loved his performance. He was like a quirky but all-powerful being, very unlike Thanos, who is very powerful and knew he was very powerful, and was just kind of the embodiment of brute strength. I feel like this guy was kind of different, kind of thought-provoking as a know-it-all kind of character. So I'd probably rewatch Loki and maybe a little bit of WandaVision. Probably not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And before I kind of finish this up, I thought it'd be kind of fun for me to guess the Rotten Tomatoes scores for these 3 movies because of my feelings on them. So let's start off with WandaVision. What do I think the WandaVision score for critics and audience could be? Now, I know Rotten Tomatoes has its critics. It's open to people just review bombing and all that stuff. But sometimes it's just a fun little game. Let's just take it at that. I would probably say WandaVision is 70% critics, around that like 73 mark for critics, and around the 85 mark for fans. So let's see. Oh wow, I was really wrong. 81% for audience. So no, that was kind of close. 91% average. So that's actually pretty good. I think that's the critic score is 91%. So that's not at all what I was expecting. So critics really love this show, even more so than the audience, which I was not expecting at all. Now we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This one I'm kind of expecting lower, so probably critics. I'm gonna go 70s for the critics and 70s for audience probably. And of course I'm wrong. Oh, sort of. So audience 71%, critics 90%. So maybe I just suck for the critics. I think I understand. I'm in tune with the audience, which is probably better, because typically the audience is more knowledgeable than the critics. And now we got Loki. So Loki, what are we dealing with? Loki. I mean, following the pattern, the critics are probably going to say 90%. And I mean, I would probably say 90% for audience, but that might be too high. And yeah, okay, good. So the pattern stays true. So 92% for critics, 86% for audience. So I guess the audience didn't love Loki as much as me, which is interesting. I feel like I've heard a lot of criticism about this Loki TV show. I don't know why. I thought Loki was super fun. I think people just didn't like the villain at the end, which I think is just strange. I don't know what you would expect. I think in this kind of show where you hype up this all-powerful character, they need to look a certain way, and I think it's very emblematic. I don't know if this is worth bringing up, but I think it's very emblematic of Jesus in the Bible, right? So people were expecting Jesus to look a certain way, and when he didn't, they didn't believe that he was Jesus. And similar to this one, when you have a villain who's kind of hyped up to kind of be this certain kind of person, when they don't fit the mold, people don't like it, I guess. I like it because I think it's new. I think it's fresh, and fresh and new is good. So, Loki, I would really recommend. WandaVision, really recommend. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, only if you like those characters. And yeah, so that's all I got. Thanks for staying on board with me on this longish episode. You can check me out, Film.Talks Official, Instagram and Facebook. I usually post my episodes on Saturdays. You can find that on Film Talks on YouTube, also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Anchor Podcasts, all the wherever you find a podcast, it's pretty much there. Yeah, be sure to leave comments, like, subscribe, do all that crap. I'll see you around. Hope you all have a great week. So long.